Ashhadu
Ashhadu
alla
alla
ilaha
ilaha
illallah
illallah
wahdahu
wahdahu
la
la
syarikalah
syarikalah
wa ashhadu
wa syahadu
wa ashhadu
wa asyhadu
anna
anna
Muhammadan
Muhammadan
abduhu
abdu
wa rasuluh.
wa rasul.
Semuanya. Asyhadu
Asyhadu
alla
alla
ilaha
ilaha
illallah
illallah
wa asyhadu
wa asyhadu
anna
anna
Muhammadan
Muhammadan
Rasulullah. Baik, Rasulullah.
Rasulullah.
Baik, berdua.
ألا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله.
Hello Muslim friends of the world. Recently, Japan has been in the spotlight because of its significant growth in the Islamic religion. This was triggered by marriages between Muslims and Japanese citizens, as well as the growth in the number of people changing religions in Japan over the last 2 decades. The increasing number of Muslims in Japan has also had an impact on increasing the number of mosques. Hirofumi Tanada, Professor Emeritus of Sociology at Waseda University in Tokyo, estimates that Japan is now home to more than 200,000 Muslims. The figure is based on government statistics, the percentage of the Muslim population by country, and membership figures for the Association of Islamic Studies in Japan. Their study shows that around 230,000 Muslims called Japan home at the end of 2020. This increase indicates that Japanese people are becoming interested in Islam and interested in learning about it. The Muslim population in Japan is not dominated by Japanese. Some consist of Indonesian, Pakistani, and Bangladeshi immigrants. Many of them became Muslims through marriage. More people may join this religion of their own accord, Tanada said. Apart from the large number of immigrants, Japanese citizens consider the example set by Muslims to pray 5 times a day to be very good and disciplined. This also makes Japanese people interested in studying Islam. Even though Islam is still a minority, very little discrimination occurs there. This is marked by the existence of restaurants labeled halal to make it easier for Muslims to find food. Not everything is easy for Japanese people who become converts to Islam. The reason is, when working, converts to Islam in Japan still find it difficult to find places of worship in office buildings. They still often look for empty, clean rooms to worship. Even though it is difficult to find a place of worship, they are still allowed to carry out worship 5 times a day during working hours. Another factor that makes Islam grow rapidly cannot be separated from the role of women. Japanese women who converted to Islam began to realize that the principles in Islamic teachings were very beneficial. Japanese women are very happy because in principle, Islam allows women to be equal to men in spiritual and moral matters. In fact, women are glorified as wives and mothers. This seems to be inversely proportional to the patriarchal view in Japan so far. Usually women in Japan are asked to do domestic work only. With the emergence of Islam, many women in Japan began to realize their dreams and achieve their careers. Women in Japan also feel safer because Islam always urges them to dress modestly, cover up, and focus on their faith. This makes Japanese women no longer care about beauty standards to the point that they are no longer used as sexual objects. Another factor that makes Islam acceptable in Japan is technology and information factors, which are very influential in the digital era or internet era. Japanese people, who are considered to like learning, are starting to find out about the Islamic religion and why there are so many Muslims in the world. Recently, many Islamic websites have started to provide accurate and trustworthy information. There are also many books and publications about Islam in Japan, including translations of the Quran, books on the history of the Prophet Muhammad, and other Islamic history books. The phenomenon of many Japanese people becoming converts to Islam makes a suitable logic emerge. There is one verse of the Quran, namely Surah An-Nasr verse 2. And you see people flocking to the religion of Allah. The large number of Japanese people who become converts proves this verse. It is known that the development of understanding of atheism in Japan is very large, but this verse proves that there will be a time when many people will know and embrace Islam. Some Japanese Muslims strictly follow their traditions such as prayer and fasting, while others are more liberal. Many factors drive the rapid growth of the Muslim population in Japan, namely as follows. First, in Japan, about half of resident Muslims are married. This suggests that Japan will have more second and third generation Muslims in the future. This new generation of Muslims will be exposed to diverse cultural and social backgrounds and will be key to bridging traditional Japanese society with the Muslim community. Second, economic growth. The second big reason why the Muslim population is concentrated in Japan is because of economic growth. People from Muslim-majority countries such as Iran, Pakistan, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and others come to Japan as workers. Many work in the construction business that thrives during a booming economy. This increase in Muslim immigrants led to an influx of apprentices and other workers, which not only increased the population but also resulted in an increase in the number of mosques throughout Japan. Third, the proliferation of mosques. Talking about the influx of Muslim immigrants and mosques, these places of worship have a number of community functions. This includes offering non-Muslim Japanese opportunities to socialize and learn about the religion. Currently, more and more mosques are being built and accepting tours from non-Japanese Muslims so that the Islamic faith is spread among the people. However, as the number of mosques increases across Japan, disputes also arise in various cities. Fourth, Islamophobia. One of the most interesting aspects is that anti-Islamic perceptions around the world have an impact on the increase of Muslims in Japan. People have become curious and want to know how one of the major religions around the world has incited violence or not. The mosque saw an increase in the number of non-Muslim Japanese visitors to the site, indicating the motivation of Japanese people to learn more about Islam. Fifth, visa-free tourism. In some Muslim countries such as Indonesia and Malaysia, tourists do not need a visa to travel to Japan. The rise in travel on low-cost planes is also why people from Muslim countries enjoy touring Japan. Sixth, increasing facilities for Muslims. To better serve Muslim consumers from around the world, many restaurants have gone the extra mile to ensure that they have halal food. They are also trying to get halal certification from various Japanese organizations. In this regard, Japan is making maximum efforts to maintain a more neutral and friendly attitude towards Muslims. Seventh, the level of religious conversion is low. Religious conversion is relatively low in Muslim societies, and the same is true for Japanese Muslims. In general, Muslims born to Muslim parents, regardless of place of birth, tend to adhere to the Islamic religion. Even if they do not follow their beliefs completely, they mostly identify as Muslims, giving rise to Japanese Muslims in Japan. It is a truth and universally acknowledged that what one thinks about religion depends greatly on what we consider religion to be. Therefore, Japan is clearly increasing their efforts to introduce more tolerance, acceptance, and harmony in their society to understand Islam, which is continuously misunderstood by the world.